Hey guys, what is up? My name is Renu, and I wanted to go ahead and talk about my impressions of Genshin Impact so far as a returning player. So, just to give a little context, I am going to be skipping to Natlan. Natlan is the newest region being introduced into Genshin Impact on 5.0, and if you don't know how Genshin Impact is sort of structured in terms of storytelling and how the overall narrative is going to, play out, Genshin Impact, from before its launch, was planned always to have 7 or 8 chapters. And you can see this on YouTube. There's a video before, I think it's called the Tavat character storyline preview. And we are in one of the very later chapters. We are in chapter 5, and there should be maybe around 2 chapters after that. So, Natlan, this chapter in Genshin Impact's timeline, is very far deep into Genshin Impact, and I'm going to be skipping all the way from Liyue. I just finished Liyue, and you have to finish Liyue in order to skip to Natlan. First of all, I think a lot of people are like a little worried that I'm not going to be able to appreciate the game as much as other people, and obviously that will be the case to a certain extent. I do think my perspective on the game will be pretty unique as someone who has no idea what happens in between Liyue and Natlan. And what I wanted to do was kind of provide that perspective. So as a returning player, how did I return into Genshin? So I basically started playing Genshin Impact on stream about a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to do it because I knew, Zenless Zone Zero, it's a great game. It's my favorite gacha game right now, but you're not going to have content like 24/7, and I plan on streaming on a pretty regular basis. So I was looking for another stream game. So it could have been Genshin Impact, it could have been Honkai Star Rail, it could have been Wuthering Waves, let's say, right? And I decided to give Genshin Impact a try, and honestly, I have been very, very impressed. I was jumping back into the last part of Mondstadt. I was able to watch Venti get punched by La Signora, and, that was an amazing scene of Mondstadt. But besides that, I didn't really understand or know much about it. I'll probably do a little recap of it, but as far as my impressions of it goes, not very impressed. And I don't think it's surprising either, because Mondstadt was where I quit the game. I thought that Mondstadt looked very plain and looked very generic, and also I just didn't really like or enjoy the exploration or just the world in general. There were a lot of other games other than Genshin Impact that came out. I would always sort of log in, see what the banner is, and I'm like, okay, this is the one. This is the one where I'm going to roll for a 5-star character. If I get it, then I'm going to keep playing Genshin Impact. And that's happened like a couple times, and in none of those times did I actually stay true to my word. I never played Genshin Impact much more than a day or two. After clearing Mondstadt, I, had to tackle Liyue because you have to beat Liyue in order to skip to Natlan. Liyue is the second nation in Genshin Impact, and my impressions of it is that it was pretty good. It really turned my opinion on Genshin Impact around. I thought, for me, like open world games, especially open world gacha games, I thought that the rewards wouldn't be significant enough to sort of encourage you to explore and go around the world. And to an extent, I was right. I don't really like exploring on my own. But what I do like about Genshin Impact is exploring with other people, right? And this is usually just people in my chat that see me struggling with like the ley lines or the bosses because all my characters are underleveled and they don't have good weapons or artifacts. So they come in, they help me out, they help me get to different TP points. Throughout exploring Genshin Impact's world, I thought, wow, this looks really good. From the moment I stepped into Liyue, we had the music. The music was just extremely phenomenal. I never really felt such a connection to the music, except in games like Nier Automata or Final Fantasy XIV. The music in Genshin Impact is truly top-notch. You listen to Liyue and then you go to Sumeru because I picked Dea as a 5-star character. I want to, go to her boss, so they led me around Sumeru. I went to Sumeru, and the music, the characteristics of the nation of Sumeru and the nation of Liyue, they're so vastly different. They're so like strong, and it's a really good score. It is just, I'm not a very musically gifted, talented person, so I can't really speak to it that much, but I can say for a fact that the music in this game makes me stop. It makes me stop in my tracks. It makes me listen. It makes me, it amazes me. So the music is good, and it helps so much with the exploration. It really is just fun to fly around, hover, climb, and walk around the scenery with a bunch of other people. Because not only are you, just sharing this experience, but the world itself is, actually really good. It's really beautiful. And I don't think I would have ever had this impression of Genshin Impact had I not finished Mondstadt. I didn't really like Mondstadt, and I still think, at least compared to Liyue, and in Sumeru in terms of like how the world looks, it's not that compelling. I don't really like it that much. But when I got to Liyue, when I first saw Liyue Harbor, for instance, I thought, dang, that city looks crazy. It looks massive, it looks huge, and it's so beautifully crafted, And when I went to Sumeru to go for my bosses, I thought, wow, I look like it kind of reminded me of Dune because, sand, desert, and whatever. But really, like, the rock structures, the spires, the signs that this was sort of like a huge battle was waged here. You see the corpse of this gigantic structure. It looks like a robot, and I think someone in my chat told me it's a robot, so, it looks like a giant robot. And you see the scars across the land and listen to all the narrative, the storytelling of gods and archons waging war and leaving, marks on the environment that you're exploring. It's really cool. It's really cool. The canyons run so deep. There are so many dunes, so many hills, and the caverns are really immense. And then when you see these temples with the lighting, the way it hits, it looks like I'm looking at a Magic the Gathering card. It looks really iconic. It looks really good. It looks like there's a story there, or at least there could be, And so the world of Genshin Impact has really turned me around. I don't think I've ever felt this way about an open world game, not in Breath of the Wild, not in Metal Gear Solid 5, not in Death Stranding, or any of the open world other games, Skyrim. Nothing really comes close to Genshin Impact in my eyes. In terms of scale, World of Warcraft is definitely up there, but I don't really have that much of a connection with it because I don't play it, I don't know life it. And to be honest, World of Warcraft has a very distinct style, but it's also pretty, it's pretty old. It's aged. It's showing its age. And with Genshin Impact, what I really love is that this is what Breath of the Wild, should look like. Because there is so much detail in the world around you, and it doesn't look like it belongs on a Nintendo Switch. You don't have, these jagged trees with very, very few branches where you can see the polygons, you know what I mean? And the edges of it. There is nothing like that in Genshin Impact as far as I've seen, and I really appreciate how good the world looks. I pay a lot of attention to Zenless Zone Zero's story and lore and world building. I think it's one of the most interesting aspects about the game. So of course, going into Genshin Impact, I want to pay attention to the story. I've been paying attention to the story. I probably have to do a little recap on Mondstadt, but I have to say, of course, we're going to pay attention to Natlan as we go along. But I have to say, for Liyue, I was very impressed by Liyue's story. The story, the writing is very good, and I do have to say that it's not crazy good. Okay, it's not super deep or complex or amazing. The dialogue, of course, there's some campy dialogue. There's a little bit of anime tropes here and there. But overall, I really like the story, the writing of Liyue. And if you could allow yourself to be spoiled for a bit, I mean, it's a pretty old story. I think Liyue launched with Genshin's launch. But Liyue is a pretty cool story. usually with stories, I'm very drawn in to either the characters or the plot. And with Liyue, it's told in such an interesting way. It's really a story about a story of growing up. And it's told in such an interesting way because Liyue is not told from the perspective of a parent and their child, but instead it's told from the perspective of a god and its nation. And when I got to that point in my head, when I really thought about like what I was actually listening to and reading and playing, I was like, huh, this is pretty interesting. Like, Liyue is very strongly written in a thematic sense. You know what I mean? And I really enjoyed my time like exploring the land, getting to know all the characters, and getting to know the nation, the character of the people of Liyue. So if you guys don't know, basically what it is Liyue is a very it's very inspired by Chinese folklore and Chinese culture. And I'm not too familiar with it, but the idea is that Liyue is very connected with their god, the god of contracts, Rex Lapis. And just as you enter the nation of Liyue, Rex Lapis is dead. He is slain right in front of everyone. And so, of course, there's a huge like state of emergency. Like, what happened? What happened to our god who just like up and died right in front of us? The body is taken away, and you learn more and more about it because there's a lot of suspicions on you. You're a newcomer to the nation of Liyue. And I'm not going to go into like super specifics and details, but eventually it comes to a point where you are introduced to the Adeptus. The Adeptus are like the divine beasts. They are illuminated beasts, technically. And what that means is like, they're kind of like guardians. They're the guardians of Liyue, but divinely inspired because Rex Lapis essentially created the Adeptus to protect Liyue. Rex Lapis is also technically one of them. He's an Adepti, but he is definitely like a god. The god is dead. Now, what is the future of Liyue? Does Liyue continue to follow tradition, to continue to, I guess, respect and honor Rex Lapis by staying close to tradition and paying reverence and respects and offerings to the Adepti? Or do they grow apart? Do they grow apart from Rex Lapis and become a nation of their own? Do they start forging their own path? And this idea came from Keqing. I think it came in Act 3. And the very instant I heard about this thought from Keqing, because you never really hear throughout Liyue before up to that part, you hear everything from the Adepti perspective, from Child's perspective, who is of the Fatui, right? About the nation of Liyue. And until now, you haven't heard anything except from the mortals, from the nobles who control Liyue, from the people who are actually residing in the city. And Keqing says, the time of the Adepti have long passed. If even the Liyue Qixing, which are the nobles of Liyue, don't want to face that truth, then what future is there for Liyue? In all their time of existence, Liyue has been in service of Rex Lapis, and in return, Rex Lapis provides them prosperity, riches, and wealth. Liyue is the richest nation in the entire world of Genshin Impact. And so now that Rex Lapis is dead, what leadership is there for them to follow? Should they not grow apart from Rex Lapis and grow on their own, forge their own path? Because the Adepti are still parts of Rex Lapis, but they are not Rex Lapis. Liyue is not in service to the Adepti as much as they are, or they've been, in service of solely Rex Lapis. So that was an interesting question, and when I first thought of it, and I first like heard this from Keqing, I was like, why would you ever want to do that? Why would you ever want to grow apart from the gods who have protected you for 3,000 plus years? And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense, or at least there was a very human quality, a human element to it. Because you can liken this analogy, you could liken this scenario to the scenario of like a parent and a child. Why would a child want to move out and leave the comfort and safety of their home? In a lot of Asian households, in Asian culture, the parents would love to just keep the child in the home, and even if they're grown and even if they become adults, they would encourage them to stay home in order to save money so that they could buy a house or whatever may have you, right? Maybe they want to be taken care of, whatever. There's a lot of reasons in traditional Asian culture for parents to try and keep the child in the home. And so why does a child want to move from that? Why would they leave the comfort, the safety, you don't have to pay that much rent if you stay home, right? Usually speaking. So like, why would a child want to move away from their parents? Well, it's for freedom. It's for freedom. It's to forge their own path. It's to make something of themselves. And it fights every sort of logic. It fights every sort of like pragmatic reasoning, but it really is like, I guess, a matter of the heart. You know what I mean? And so when I thought of it that way with Keqing, I was like, dang, that actually made sense. Like I was turned around on that. Would Liyue continue to follow the wishes of a dead god, essentially? And throughout the entire time of playing through Liyue, you follow Zhongli, who, spoiler alert, is Rex Lapis. Rex Lapis didn't actually die. Zhongli is actually who he is. And Rex Lapis is now the god of Liyue, is walking amongst the people. And throughout the entire story of Liyue, of this chapter, you follow Zhongli, and Zhongli is, getting the traveler to help him prepare the rite of passing and basically follow and adhere to tradition and see the nation of Liyue. He goes to talk to the people of Liyue, of the merchants, of the businessmen, and see, like, can they do without him? Zhongli essentially was like a father trying to test their child to see if they are ready for the outside world, if they are ready to be independent, if they are ready to move out on their own. And he did this by walking amongst the people and seeing how his nation would act and behave without his presence, with them knowing that he's gone. And when I, put that all together in my head, I thought, dang, like, this is pretty good stuff. It's pretty good stuff. It's told in a very unique way, and I'm glad that I played through Liyue, and I do want to play through all the other regions as well. I want to play through all the other regions as soon as I'm done with the first part of Natlan. I do want to play Natlan right now because it looks like a lot of fun, and I feel like, again, I want to provide that perspective of me skipping from Liyue to Natlan. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Those are my first impressions of Genshin Impact. I'm very excited for Natlan. I'm very excited to see what there is to come, and come back here and talk about my experiences going through Natlan and going through all the other nations as well. If you guys want to watch some of that, you can catch me live on twitch.tv/rednew23. I go live every day, pretty much, 7-8 p.m. Pacific. Or you could stay on this YouTube channel, like and subscribe, and I also go live on here as well. So yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care. Peace.